Om Sadashiva Samarambam Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Param Ishvaro Guratmeti Murti Veda Vibhagine Vyo Mabda Vyapta Dehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha Tava Vedanta Sedanta Gocharam Tamagocharam Govindam Paramanandam Satguru Pranatoshmaham Om Om Shanti 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 Om. Okay, Namaste, welcome to our Panchadasi. We begin from the verse 7 to 8, page 137. Do we have any questions before we begin? No complaints? Okay. This self is limitless. Is I guess is the last Mahavakya that the author is going to present here. It comes from Atavarna Veda, from the Mandukya Upanishad, lovely Upanishad. So this self is limitless. This refers to distance, proximity. Okay, when you say this self is limitless, so we are referring to something not like the other one that was saying that's that you are that. Now it's using the word this. It somehow it breaks the idea that there is that reality, but it says this reality is limitless. Okay, this self is limitless. So it brings to a immediate proximity something that is the true reality, and which is also limitless. It's a contradiction in terms because this is limitless. So if it is limitless, so what is the point of say this or that? Okay, so the words always are going to be a little bit limited to talk about what we are. So this self is one without a second. This is limitless. Okay, it's so close, it's so intimate. It's our intrinsic nature. Okay, it's so there are no distance between you, I, and this self. So of course the meaning of this self is referring to what? Is referring to the reflected consciousness, the Jiva Atma. This reflect consciousness again is that original consciousness. This self is limitless. So it's referring to the Jiva in search for self-knowledge and moksha, who is dwelling on this reflected consciousness, saying, what is this? What is this? What is this? And then the Upanishad comes, this self of yours, this I, this aham is the limitless self. Okay? So the self is the Jiva Atma, which in fact is Paramatma, so which is the innermost ever experienced consciousness, okay? Which is the essence of the Jivatma. Something that is essential cannot be reduced to anything else. So we need to understand very clearly the meaning of the word essential nature, okay, or nature. Yeah, nature. So you cannot be subdivided or broken or reduced or resolved into anything else. Why? Because it's the essential nature. Essential nature is something that you cannot go beyond that, and that thing is not that thing without its essential nature. How can you remove the essential nature of something and that something still exists? So if we remove the heat and the light of fire, fire does not stand because heat and light is the essential nature, so to speak, of the fire. Yeah? The same way any living creature has its essential nature that we could call the spirit of every living creature. So you remove the spirit, so that thing no longer exists as a living creature. Huh? You remove the subtle body, which actually it's more technically correct to say. You remove the subtle body, and then any physical construct is going to decay and disappear. Huh? So something that's so essential that cannot be reduced to anything else, limitless, which is an indication of vastness or of Brahma, yeah, means the innermost essence of everything. The essence of everything and my essence are the same since I don't exist apart from anything. So everything shares the same essence, the same nature, okay? And this is the I, the non-dual I, which exists in everything as the essence of everything, as the essential nature of everything. So we are the substratum of the entire universe, and in the absence of the universe, we are the essence of Maya. And Maya sometimes goes to sleep and stops the projection of the universe as we know. So we have the example here about the ocean. If we remove the wave of the ocean, what are we going to be left? We are still left with the ocean. Yeah? You remove the waves of the ocean. So, and now what's left? The ocean. Huh? Now we remove the ocean. Oh my God, how are we going to remove the ocean? Huh? I remove the ocean, and still I'm going to be left with what, Claudio?
With the if you remove you have still the ocean, and if you remove the ocean you have nothing, right?
No, no. We have a situation here that we are trying to explain the essential nature of phenomenal objects. So we know that the wave exists, but the wave is a name and form that appears superimposed on the ocean. And then how you're gonna do? You're gonna discriminate and you're going to reject the wave, and then you are left with the ocean. Okay, ocean. But we can still resolve the ocean. We can discriminate and we can reject the ocean. And when we reject the ocean, we are left with water. Water is the essential nature of the
Okay,
ocean,
great.
and the wave and the form and every expression of water, associated with salt water, which is ocean water. Okay, so
Okay,
I know that you know this, but sometimes it
yes,
escapes.
yes, yeah, okay.
Yeah, because you were thinking about your girlfriend, most probably.
No, I was, because I have my text in front of me, and sometimes when I read the text to when
Uh,
you speak, and sometimes I miss something,
okay. This self is always experienced without a means of knowledge. Without a means of knowledge, meaning to say a process or a thought. So even in the absence of a means of knowledge, we experience the self. This is one of those statements that we can say, okay, so if I don't need a means of knowledge because the self is ever experienced, okay? So and then forget about Vedanta and Upanishads and classes and guru. So the self is always experienced, and even without means of knowledge. We again and again we say that self-knowledge, like any other knowledge, requires a means of knowledge. So when we want to have to be a medical doctor, we need a means of knowledge so that we can have the medical knowledge. Okay, and then I can be a doctor. So we want self-knowledge. We need to have what? A body of knowledge that's going to allow me or reveal to me or facilitate to me self-knowledge, the knowledge in regards to the true self, right? But here we have an apparent contradictory statement because of the context. So the self is always experienced even without means of knowledge. Okay? So even if you're not thinking, even if you're not inquiring, even if you're not dreaming, okay, is still the self is always ever experienced. Okay? So, but as we know, there is no contradiction in this statement because one thing is experiencing your existence. One thing is experience your mind, your thoughts, which is consciousness reflected in your subtle body. One thing is you experience that. Another thing is to convert that experience into a firm, clear, ever present knowledge. I am that pure, limitless consciousness. Otherwise, you take yourself to be the mind. So, doesn't matter. You may have a wonderful samadhi and the self is being experienced. You may be totally anxious or stressed and the self is being experienced. No mental condition is going to change the fact that you experience limitless original consciousness manifests as a certain mental condition or pattern. Okay, so one thing is to know that I experience the self 24/7, and I don't need a means of knowledge. It is a fact. But what good that does to us unless you have a means of knowledge that's going to allow us to understand that I already experience the self at all times because I am the self. Unless we have that body of knowledge, we're gonna look at the Upanishads and we're gonna say, "Oh yes, I got it. Was the shortest cut I have found in the spiritual way, you know. And now I don't need to do anything anymore. Neither look for samadhi, samadhi yoga, or anything, because I'm already experienced without any knowledge and even without yoga." In the modern spiritual world, there are teachers who refer to a certain experience as Jesus. That this is it. Now, James likes to make fun of the this is it gurus. No, he says, and he has been around the block for so long, and he knew when this fashion came because in the spiritual world there are fashions as well. So there was a fashion that it was very, very popular to say, "This is it." Huh? And I have seen that with my eyes. Sitting with Papaji, somebody would have a certain moment or experience, and then he would say, "This is it. This is it." Okay, and everybody would be blessed out. Oh, another one receiving an enlightenment certificate or validation, say, "This is it." Okay, and but of course, he would not really elaborate on what is this and what is it, you know, because it's not the experience, it is the knowledge that you are that. This, you know, consciousness in this wonderful state or in this glimpse of bliss, okay, in this blissed out state, you are that consciousness. But and then people believe that no, I am consciousness when I'm blissed out, and I am only blissed out when I'm sitting in front of Papaji. You understand? And then again, I'm back into the spiritual samsara, and that's why I do not want to live like now. You understand? Because you get caught up into that kind of misunderstanding. So the this is it gurus, they were not really good teachers because they did not have a teaching. And they could just explain that you are having an experience due to the fact that your mind is really cleared right now. You are free, you know, of desires and aversions, and you experience this reflection of consciousness in a resolved mind. But the problem is that resolved mind in the presence of Papaji was a resolved mind by the impact of that satsanga field of energy. Okay, the Shakti of Papaji, the Shakti of the group would create a sattvic kind of environment. And then we used to experience this this blissful state, because our mind would turn sattvic, okay? And then when you say Jesus is it, and then you will say Jesus experience is it, okay? You need to be blissed out 24/7. And then all these misconceptions come and misleads people, and keeps people bound to yoga. Huh? Whereas this experience is an object that occurs within me consciousness. I am consciousness. And the funny thing, Claudia, is that when the mind is sattvic, we have a real interesting situation. It's like how what would be the a knife with two edges, no? You know, a knife now it's a razor with two edges, so it can cut either ways. You understand? So you are in that state of bliss, of peace, and clarity, and so on. And then in that sattvic environment, you're gonna have this wonderful experience, and that wonderful sattvic environment is the best possible environment for you to inquire and understand the Mahavakyas of Vedanta. But once people are in that sattvic environment, more often than not, they don't want to inquire, because inquire represents to break the bliss. You understand? So we need to know it from the beginning, that the blissful state, the peaceful state, okay, the shanti state, the sattvic state is not the end. It's just the environment on which I should activate my mind and do my nididhyasana, a very subtle process of vichara, of inquiring, around those teachings of Vedanta that are somehow dominating my mind. You understand? So that's why it's a sattvic mind is very, very good. But so how many people are stuck in sattva, as we say? How many people are stuck in those experiential states? You understand? And then they believe this is it. Therefore, I need to go back to that state again and again. And that takes us in the chapter 6, direct and indirect knowledge. So it presents a metaphor of painting and a canvas and a painting that was painted on that. So it presents attributeless consciousness. Attributeless consciousness is also known as Nirguna Brahman. And Nirguna Brahman is the only reality, is the only Satya, okay? Nirguna Brahman, conscious existence, the only reality. And then the second aspect in this metaphor is the macrocosmic causal body, which is Isvara, okay? Isvara is the macrocosmic causal body, is the intelligent cause of the universe. It's also called Antaryami, okay? And then the number 3 aspects in this metaphor is the macrocosmic subtle body, Hiranyagarbha, okay, which is the mind, the full mind of consciousness of Ishvara, which can be seen as the totality of everything known by all Jivas as well. And then the fourth element in this metaphor is the Virat, which is the macrocosm gross body, the universe. So in other words, Jagata, right? And then we have Ishvara, and we have Jagata, and then we have the macrocosm causal body, the consciousness, which is the substrate on everything, and then we have the macrocosmic mind, okay? So let's move on to see, this is just to present the context of this analogy. The analogy of the metaphor comes with the verse 1. Before a painting is completed, it goes through 4 stages. Before the word appears, it also goes through 4 stages, okay? Or states, avasta. So the next verse says, the pure white canvas is the first stage. And then this canvas needs to be stiffened with starch. And then the third stage is a sketch. Yeah? A sketch needs to be drawn. And then the fourth one is you start using colors, and to different place to create the painting. Yeah? So the white canvas, of course, is limitless consciousness. So we will have a limitless consciousness, the knowledge, which is limitless but not yet manifest. And then in order for this limitless consciousness, which has the potential to pure sattva, which is the total knowledge of this apparent reality, we need to do what? We need to take this canvas, and soak it or dip it into the starch. The starch is Maya. No? So we need to dip, this this limitless consciousness in Maya. And this Maya basically is the three energies. So imagine you have consciousness, and then this consciousness is not going to produce any painting. Painting here is the projection. Painting is the reflection of the universe. So first is limitless, one without a second consciousness, and then it has to have this contact with Maya. And Maya appears as something like a starch that is going to create the proper screen on which the other phenomenon, the phenomenon number 3, number 4 are going to appear. So we need to deep this consciousness in the Maya Prakriti, which are the three energies, okay, which includes the Ishvara as well, the sattvic aspect, okay, and so on. Ishvara the artist, Ishvara the artist is very nice. So we have the artist here, Ishvara, the one who has the knowledge to develop the entire universe, picture of the entire universe, okay? And then we have the sketches in all the Jivas, Hiranyagarbha. So we have to do all the sketch, bring about all the parts, and then in the end, we have to add colorful gross bodies. Virat is when the gross bodies are really configured, and then we have this entire world, universe of Namarupas, whereas before they were just as concepts. The concepts grossifies in matter. And then we have to add colors, meaning to say bring about the entire body of Namarupas, of the entire universe. And then we have what? We have the complete picture. The meaning of the word Virat is the one who manifests and shines in manifold forms. Virat, the one who manifests, the shining world, the one that manifests in manifold forms. So far, so good. Are we on the same page with this metaphor, Claudio? Hmm?
Not totally, because there are some words that I don't understand. But maybe I will
Yeah.
see it on my own with more
Oh yes,
thought. But I understand the big picture. I understand, but
the
not maybe I.
concept. Yeah, you don't need to
Yeah, I
know
understand the concept.
exactly the meaning of the word Hiranyagarbha or Virat. I'm trying to present
Yeah,
alternative to
with
those
English
words.
words, not with Sanskrit. So,
Okay. The
but
English
not a
words.
problem. I will see it again
Okay.
later. But I understand
Oh, okay. Maybe you don't understand the word sketches.
yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Stiffened starch. I don't know what this is. So I
Okay.
was making just now a research to
Okay.
see what it is.
Okay.
But I
So when I was a child, I remember
mm,
my grandmother apply when we cook spaghetti in Italy. There is starch. Okay, carbs contain starch.
yeah.
Starch
Okay.
é a la goma, né?
Amido.
O amido. Yeah. So the amido is going to accumulate, and then you have a glue. Okay. So I remember my grandmother. She used to add starch to make the shirt, of someone who goes to the office to be nice and stiff and colorino. Otherwise it's all loose. That is starch. You have a cloth. You put it in starch and you bring it up, and then this cloth becomes stiff. When it's stiff, and then it's easier to draw, stiff, firm.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's
Mm-hmm.
the concept.
Okay. Thank you.
So the next verse is starting with consciousness. There are many grades of beings in the creation, superior to inferior, down to inanimate objects. So this is the first part of this verse, because there are many verses comprised, starting with consciousness. So consciousness is one without a second, and then it's dipped in the three energies of Maya. Okay, it somehow it gets a little stiff, and then what happened? And then beings come into place. Okay, and beings here could be, and the first stage relate to the subtle bodies. Okay, so the concept and the beings before they grossify and manifest as physical bodies. Okay, start with consciousness. There are many beings, grades, different levels of beings in the creation, and then there are superior beings, there are inferior beings, and there are even inert, inanimate objects. Okay, so we have inanimate object, and inanimate objects is a word that refers to inert, but also Jivas, object. Living creatures can be inanimate as well, or not, technically speaking, because there are a lot of living creatures that do not move. You understand? That's what I mean. Although the plants they grow, you understand, and they have a way to respond a little bit, but doesn't matter. Let's say that down to inert objects. Now I think it refers to living creatures who are not animated. They do not move and act. Okay. So we have the superior creatures and the inferior creatures. And this goes to living beings that are considered to be the superior creatures, although we haven't proved yet to be superior to the other creatures. Huh? But at least we have intelligent intellect and free will, which allows us to 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 get self-knowledge and moksha. Huh? So we have the superior beings. The superior beings, first of all, are human beings, and we see the human beings. We have human beings and human beings and human beings. As we know, we have different levels or grades of uh, of of living beings, of human jivas. So we all know that there are human beings that they are much closer to be, I don't even know what to say, but we say sometimes they are closer to be an animal, but we see so many animals that are so gracious and beautiful. Cat is one example of beautiful creatures. you know but anyhow, we know that there are souls that are more elevated, superior. They are subtler and sattvic, and there are some other souls that are denser souls. And then there are animals, and there are human animals and insect animals, fish animals, and then there are trees and so on. There are many inanimate and animate jivas. These jivas, they reflect consciousness. So we know that, and I prefer to use these jivas. They shine with consciousness due to the fact of having three bodies, and in between the two bodies, they have a subtle body, which is the mind, that somehow it reflects such, reflects the source. Aham, I am, I exist, and then I try to understand what is this aham and what is the world, what's the nature of what appears around me. So these jivas, they shine with consciousness, due to the reflecting medium, means the mind or the subtle body. And then the verse says they are samsaris. So I would say like some of them are samsaris. And as long as they are samsaris, they are subject to birth and death, pleasure and pain. I would say the large majority are samsaris, and they are subject to birth and death. So we were subject to birth and death, means to say that we were somewhat samsaris in our previous birth, okay? So maybe we were totally materialistic samsaris, or maybe we were spiritual samsaris, okay? But anyhow, we were not yanis. We died not really complete yanis. Therefore, we got another birth, right? So they are somehow anyanis, and therefore they are subject to birth and death. They are subject to pleasure and pain. And then it changes, it brings about another verse. That's why it seems to be unrelated to one another. And then he says, there are other creatures which are the inert elements without a subtle body, uh, which do not reflect consciousness, and those are not Jivas, okay? So those are not Jiva, the inert universe. Anything more about this compilation of verse? This is common, simple knowledge for us, isn't it? Or not?
Yeah, Arlindo, I remember, I think it's Chinmayananda who said there are stone people, plant people, all right, stone men, plant men, animal men, men, and God men.
This is so beautiful. I love it. Thank you for reminding me of that. The stone man, let's repeat it. The stone man, animal
Plant.
man.
First plant, stone, plant,
Stone,
animal, man, and God.
yeah, God man. Yeah. It's pretty much on target, this one, you know. So there are some creatures that they are really so beautiful, huh? That they yeah, I guess this is the process. It is to convert our plant nature, our mineral nature, of animal nature into a divine nature. No, and this is the process that we grow spiritually to be more and more an expression of the divine, of God, and so on. Very nice. So the following verse 11, the Jiva reflection is affected by pleasure, pain, with which it is confused. But the self is not affected by pleasure and pain, and the self is never confused. So again, we have the reflex consciousness, which defines the Jivatma. Jivatma is reflected consciousness. Reflex consciousness is all the time subject to pleasure and pain, and we know that the mind is subject to pleasure and pain. And the mind is subject to knowledge and ignorance, okay? And then this reflection is always subject to confusion, okay? So it is under the pressure of I want pleasure and I don't want pain. And then I lose my discrimination because of these vasanas, based on likes and dislikes. Because of these vasanas, I lose discrimination. And then I identify it as the mind which is affected by pleasure and pain. And then I become confused. And then I'm suffering. But you, consciousness, the self, you are not affected, neither confused. Not affected, nor confused. This understanding is called knowledge and is achieved through the discrimination between the mithya, which is the mind, reflect consciousness, and the original consciousness, satya. you see, here it says that this understand is called self-knowledge. Which understand? They understand that the mind is affected by pleasure and pain, and the mind goes through certain states, including confusion and lack of discrimination. But I, consciousness, I am never confused. I'm never subject to ignorance or knowledge either, you know, and I'm never emotionally affected. So it's just making a clear-cut distinction between I, the self, consciousness, awareness, and I, the mind. So one is my inferior nature, one is my superior nature. My superior nature is free from my inferior nature. My inferior nature is not free from the world. And the world is going to present my parabdha karma. My parabdha karma is going to affect my mind. Okay, but I, the self consciousness, I'm not affected by pleasure and pain because I'm not the mind. So, in which way this is an absolute truth, and in which way it's not real? Okay, because there are two elements in this verse. Okay, one is I, the self. I'm not affected to pleasure and pain. I'm not subject to confusion. Okay, but this does not mean that I, the self, am an experiencing entity who experience full clarity, and I do not experience any pleasure or pain, or even more commonly, mistakenly assumed, I only experience pleasure. No, I consciousness, I'm not an experiencing entity. And then what is the big deal here? If I'm not an experiencing entity, why am I going to go through all this trouble of discriminating and this and that if I'm not going to experience 100% pleasure and 100% clarity rather than confusion and and uh, and pain? You understand, Claudio? Huh? So why am I doing all of that then? Okay, so it's all about knowledge. Okay, and then I know. Huh? Yeah, I know, I understood. I know. I am consciousness. I'm not the mind. Let the mind suffer. Let the mind be confused because I am consciousness. Okay? And this understanding is self-knowledge. And is achieved by discrimination between original consciousness and the mind. And then F the mind. Let the mind be disturbed. Let the mind be confused. Let the mind be stressed. You understand? And then Swami Paramarthananda comes in and explains to us that this self-knowledge, which depends on this understanding between I, original consciousness, my superior nature and real nature, and my apparent nature or inferior nature, which is the mind, you know, this discrimination is all there is, and it is self-knowledge. So Swami P comes and says, okay, but this discrimination is self-knowledge, but it's only valuable to the extent that it purifies the mind so that you experiencing yourself in the world in a positive and grateful and elegant way. You understand? So with equanimity, with stability, with balance, equilibrium, you know, seeing things, you know, equanimity. And so you just live your life as a demonstration of the fruits of self-knowledge, okay? And then as this self-knowledge, which is made of only knowledge, okay? It needs to somehow produce this purification, huh? or refinement of the reflected consciousness with the Jiva Atma, so that the Jiva Atma does not experience that much pain anymore except physical pain, but not emotional and psychological pain. You understand? And this Jiva Atma is not fun of sensory pleasure anymore either. You know, it's just it got such an understanding that it brought about an experience of shanti and peace and equanimity. You understand? And clarity of mind. So the fructification of self-knowledge needs to be present so that this self-knowledge has really transformed the Jiva Atma into a divine being. Okay? So it's a man God, as we say. In some of these texts, they say that there are two kinds of divine beings. One is the man God, and the other is the God man. Maybe you heard about that as well, Lin. One is man God, and the other is the God man. Okay? What is the man God? Is someone like us who were born here. We went through the mineral and the vegetal and so on, an animal, and then we became man, and now we elevate ourselves to the status of a God man, and then we no longer need to be reborn. But then there is also the God man. God man is someone who is God, is a soul who is God, but somehow comes down to become a man for some purpose that only Ishvara knows. So the goal here is not to have this self-knowledge unless this self-knowledge, fructifies or manifests as a God-man entity, you understand, who has an incredible influence or impact, a positive impact on other creatures and the environment. You understand? So this is the conversion of the intellectual self-knowledge into the existential self-knowledge, or the self-knowledge that was there at the intellectual level that spread into the emotional level, so that the individual is going to have his knowledge and his life on the same page. You understand? Rather than having this knowledge but then behave violently, animalistically, or howsoever we say that, and here and there. You understand? So I just want to explore a little bit that the discrimination between original and reflect consciousness is a must, and then this is going to gradually shift the identity of the inquirer into the reflect consciousness to original consciousness, and to the extent that the shift is stable and clear. And then what happens? The individual transcends pleasure and pain, and then experience shanti, peace and clarity, transcends pleasure and pain and confusion and depression, and then he experiences equanimity and peace. Huh? It's more on those lines to avoid misconceptions. Therefore, the following verse. Therefore, one should always inquire into the nature of the world, inquire into the nature of the individual mind, self, and inquire into the original self, the nature of the original self. When the ideas, the notions of Jiva, Ishvara, and Jagata are negated, and then pure consciousness alone remains. When the idea of the of the wave, the wave and the ocean is negated, and then pure water alone remains. So here we have a third element. We have Jiva, Ishvara, and Jagata, the universe projected by Maya Ishvara. So we negate those superimpositions. We negate those attributes, okay, which are not non-essential attributes, non-essential projections. Okay, so when we reject the non-essentials, and then we have what? We have the essential. What is the essential? Pure limitless consciousness, which is the essence of Ishvara, Jiva, and Jagat remains. So the whole process of discrimination is to go down to the essential, 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 essential. So what is the essential? Essential is that which pervades every second my apparent existence as the body-mind complex, which is not affected by the body-mind complex in contact with the world. Experience does not impact what I am. And I need to know what is this Satya and why I am Satya and the benefits I'm knowing, so that I live from that platform of self-knowledge so that the world does not impact me as before. It's going to impact my body-mind complex, but does not impact me. And this is called moksha. This is called freedom. I'm free of the world, although my body-mind is still bound to the world physically and mentally, but I am no longer dependent. I am free and independent of my experience. You understand? Because I'm not the mind. I'm not the intellect. Now the monsoon came here, ma. I'm experienced a lot of rain here this day.
Yeah, I can still hear you, Alan. It's a bit broken, my internet. Though.
Can you hear me still?
Yeah, more or less.
Try to talk, Arlindo, because
Huh?
I can try to talk.
Can you hear less the noise now, or is it the same? The rain. Is it better?
Maybe it's better, yes.
Okay, let's go slow because it's going to become softer soon. So the next paragraph is the definition of vichara. Vichara means inquiry, which means also investigation, huh? Self-inquiry, self-investigation. If I am ignorant, I will take the world to be real, and I will imagine that the world affects me. Oh, a simple statement. When we use the word ignorant, we mean self-ignorant. So what is the most fundamental ignorance? We are ignorant about so many things because we know nothing. Isvara knows everything for us, thanks God. So we are totally ignorant about Mithya. But we don't want to be ignorant in respect to Satya. So what is the most fundamental ignorance? And if we resolve that ignorance, and then doesn't matter to be ignorant of everything else in the world, because that is Mithya. But as far as Satya, we cannot afford to be ignorant. It's the most essential ignorance, okay? Is the ignorance in respect to what? What I am. What is this I? You understand? Because if I miss out on understand what I am, I'm going to suffer. Huh? And there is no end to try to improve this notion of I am this, I am that. You understand? Unless I jump into Satya and I say I am Satya. In Mithya, there is no end for self improvement in terms of identity. You can do therapies, you can do all kinds of course, okay, of pumping up your self-image and identity, and So anywhere you go, you're going to have always I identity. If it is based on the body-mind construct, it's going to produce suffering. Okay, so I can never miss on this piece of knowledge. So if I am ignorant in respect to what I am, I'm going to be suffering because I'm going to be affected by my experience, by the experience of this very body mind. I'm trying to make a super hero, a super I, a super Jiva. And it's all in the field of imagination. I imagine myself to be ignorant. I imagine the world to be real. I imagine the world to serve the purpose of complete me, and I imagine that the world is really affecting me. Why? I'm stepping in Mithya, and in Mithya there is no solution. The only solution can only come from Satya, not on the level of the problem, The problem is that this is just an apparent reality. Okay, so I need to stand in reality so that I solve the problem. Knowledge is the understanding that the belief that objects are real, the belief that the objects are there to produce happiness and to complete me. These notions, they belong to the mind, not to me, original consciousness. Okay? So knowledge is the understanding that this is all mind, this is all mithya. And in mithya, there is no solution. They don't belong to me, Satya. I am original, limitless consciousness. To bring about this knowledge, self-inquiry is required. And how are we going to go about doing this investigation? We can try alone, but it's very, very difficult. Most everybody gets in contact with a sort of guru, either on the level of inspiring someone, okay, to search intuitively, asking who am I, what am I, and so on. Or if one is lucky enough, finds a teaching guru who is going to present the entire body of teachings, that are going to greatly facilitate this investigation, this inquiry, this vichara. Okay, so it needs to be guided by this body of knowledge. The body of knowledge is going to be the light, helping us to do this investigation into the nature of this ignorance in respect to what I am. What is the nature of this I? It's very subtle. So what is this I? The first intuitive conclusion is that I am this body. And then the second intuitive conclusion or ignorant conclusion is, no, I am what I think. I am what I believe. I am my memories. I am my emotions and so on. Everything that happens within the body-mind complex is going to be claimed to be the I. So we need a body of knowledge to help us to understand that there is something subtler than the functions of the subtle body. You understand? There is something much more subtle than emotions, thoughts, notions, ideas, and so on. And how I'm going to investigate to get to understand the most subtle aspect of my human experience and find the conviction to identify myself as this most subtle of the subtle. I need a very subtle body of knowledge which is pointing to that which is unsubstantial, although it's the substance of everything or the substratum of everything, because it's free of attributes. So I need the Upanishads, I need the teachings of Vedanta that's going to help me to look into my human experience and do what? I'm going to reject, okay? Reject Isvara, reject the body-mind complex, reject every phenomenon in Jagata. I'm going to reject the waves. I'm going to reject the ocean. I'm going to reject the forms and then I'm going to extract the essential true nature of the eye, of the ocean in analogy. So I need a body of knowledge that goes that subtle, okay? Because science never goes into Satya, and psychology never goes into consciousness, real. The whole talk about consciousness that we hear in the psychological fields or even in the esoteric or spiritual, they are all referring to the mind. And they call consciousness. I saw a statement this day. Oh yeah, I saw a publicity, a very funny publicity of one of these gurus. The gurus of the now, yeah, which is a very old concept. Okay, that guy who wrote some books, and then according to James, these books, after some time they start piling up dust because people understand that it does not help at all, because it doesn't matter if you know. I say, the big deal here is to stay in the now. Okay, how are you going to stay in the now without addressing the ignorance operating the mind? that keeps remembering, projecting, anticipating. You understand? How you can stay in the now? The ignorance is there. Okay? Stay in the now is a byproduct, is an effect. So we have to work on the cause. I saw a statement, beautiful, showing the internet. You better shift. You better shift your consciousness before 2023 because the world is going to be really shit and it's going to be difficult to shift your consciousness, in 2023. So, I mean, people when they hear that, they say, "Oh my God, I have to shift my consciousness, my mind. I have to shift it," And it's all BS. It's all vagueness, abstractions about shifting. You have to shift your shift your understand, shift your identity from the mind. You understand? Leave the mind. Shift your identity from the mind to consciousness. Consciousness does not shift because it's all pervasive. You understand? You shift your identity. You shift from ignorance-based identity to knowledge-based identity. I cannot talk about those things. I get excited. There is so much ignorance dressed up as knowledge out there, but they serve certain purpose. People, we need to begin somewhere. I began with really entry-level pointers or gurus, or masters. They are seen as the greatest masters, and then there are the huge crowds following these greatest masters. Okay, wherever there is a crowd of people, you be sure that the soup is very dilute. The knowledge is very dilute. You understand? Where are we? Okay, so this knowledge is required for our self-investigation. So in this self-investigation is nothing but Shravana, Manana, and Nididhyasana. Vedantic Shravana, Manana, and Nididhyasana. And of course, people out there in the spiritual world would, they find us crazy. What is this? Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana, listening, reflecting, contemplate. This is mind. This is mental. You understand? There is nothing to it. This is philosophy. Okay? I am the silence. I am the now. I am the presence. And so on. All these experiential things. It only works when the desire to experience the self is converted into the desire for self-knowledge. This is one of my favorite statements. We need to convert the desire for experiencing something which feels good into the desire to know the truth, whatsoever, howsoever it feels. You don't care about how it feels. You understand? I don't want to have any feel-good experience because all feel-good experience have betrayed me. They are like prostitutes. They come and they go with somebody else. You see you are bliss now, and next month the bliss moved to your neighbor, and you are having a mental depression. You understand? So you have to convert this desire for having a blissful experience into a desire for the truth, to knowledge of the truth. Huh? And then this desire for self-knowledge must in turn be converted into a desire for the scriptural knowledge. Oh no, I have a huge desire now, but now I don't need any scripture, then much less guru. I mean, teacher, forget it. Okay, I have a nice desire. I'm done with the desire for experience. Now I want a desire for self-knowledge, but I don't accept any help from any scripture. I'm going to figure it out by myself. Good luck. It's much more difficult. Huh? And then it needs to be converted into abiding commitment to the scriptures. So who has that sort of commitment? You understand? Systematically, persistently working until my knowledge is clear, until my knowledge fructifies or manifests in my life so that I am living in peace and I'm dying in peace. I'm living this body in peace. There is nothing more beautiful than leave the body with elegance. Most people lose the body shit in their pants. You understand? It's true. So they say, or at least pissing in their pants. Huh? But just imagine, just leaving the body with such elegance, exactly like the people in Hollywood. They die with elegance. They say, they whisper a few words and say, yes, goodbye, I'm out of here, and so on. So there is nothing more beautiful than living with that kind of gratitude, saying goodbye to the people around you and saying, never mind, okay, I'm not going anywhere. You are not going to go anywhere. You are the substratum of everything. You are the essential nature of everything. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid of dying. Don't be afraid of leaving, because people who lives with the fear of pain and desire and pleasure, they suffer. There's no point in living with fear. Live it fully, huh? And knowing that you can never be affected by your experience. That's the bottom line. Okay, my dears, it was good to see you. And I hope that these teachings also motivate you to grow with your mumukshutva, your desire for freedom and your commitment to the scriptures until they are no longer really necessary. Okay? Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Thank you. Thank you, Lord. Thank you, my friends. Namaste. We meet again this coming Thursday. I will be home again. I heard it's raining a lot. I hope Isvara does not holds the internet signal for us, let's say. Okay, bye bye.
Thank you.
Bye bye.